QRMOS 5521. Today is day 27 August 2021. We will have here kind of a review of things. This effort is closed. It was, the premises academic research became a white label project with industrial activity, and we offer as the prospect that we'd like to have some players at the market, considering the cooperative area, the public area, some areas ignored and considered that big bullshit. Despite we had a lot of abuses point to this area, tolerance with corruption inside a specific geopolitical space, distributed inside specific departments with specific signatures as command and domain of circumstance against this white crime label research, which indeed points now to the deep web, which is a piece of the public corruption very concerned with general modified data as advantage that can be used against innocent people and can protect real criminals and can have the continuity of illicit scams which the driver point to the public corruption scam. We observe that some values at this research happen in an area very close, kind of my private life, my private space, a conversation with a family member or a dinner at my house or something like this. If you had access to this kind of thing, you violate the privacy, you violate the intimacy, you violate even this environment here as a private room when I have the development of my research, of my ideas, of my thoughts, and it's about a cooperative level in an international way. You committed maybe an international crime, which is inside a segment named white label industry. You committed industrial crime. Has any doubt about this? Public corruption, Scam Brazil, driver by the Financial Center of Investment associated with public budget, academic research about economic and financial control. You are a criminal offender in an international way, suffering international consequence by the behavior and the lack of will assumed by each one of you inside the public institution. 74 all of you integrated. 23 item 1 geopolitical distribution of power in each federative entity, since from the county, the states, and the federative union. We will have in mind that we could observe a very curious pattern all this time, which in this, considering this last period, which was in general, you use your prerogative, your skill training to be at the public department to commit crimes. And this association got a value, which is the segment that you belong with the behavior and the intention that you have. These places you as a not reliable debtor. It means that the probability to you set a fraud scam against the payment, even after we have the payment, is a real situation, because you in general use your procedure considering the misuse of prerogatives and setting structural failures. And let's suppose this is an investigation with no reason during almost 10 years. You will collect data here, and you probably will set situation using this kind of data collected inside a legal procedure. For instance, if your Supreme Court had a lot of problems, is unable to have the tax declaration, the property evaluation as a review with transparency, and had orders about a procedure which is a policial procedure, guided, led by the Supreme Court. Maybe this is a distortion. And let's suppose that this happened inside a period like this with 10 years of procedural, a procedure full of arbitrariness or illegal. We have the illegal behavior and increased and encouraged by silence, and the top level acting inside this and having a new model of prescription against anyone based on exclusive interest. And this is a general idea of lawfare. But on this, let's suppose the structural failure inside this linear movement is something like this. I will have the failure A, I will have the failure A. Inside each one of those failures, I will have decisions. But some decisions will happen kind of by the authority in the same level. For instance, if you are a local corruption authority, now you are a top member of the corruption scam as an authority, always at the regular segment or institution, which the dignity has no relation with the vices of the variables inside, despite the perception of the environment is that you are not reliable. You will be by the frequency, which points to a density of behavior at this area here. And then you observe, if you have the procedure A and the procedure B, A small letter, the crossing thing by the space, which is the same, the conjunctural Brazil, but the time will now place you to the database sigma as review A small letter, A capital letter, crossing by line and columns, give me the alpha perception as domain of circumstance of a criminal scam, at transnational organized scam or something like this, using this database sigma, which allowed me to have two questions. First question, do you consider criminal authorities in Brazil at public institutions with continuing of your illegal activity as presenting as something regular, that could exist a risk or any possible risk as possibility of misusage of your architecture at this public institution, or sometimes with coalition linked with, to have, for instance, the trafficking of drugs, organs, and military instruments as machine guns or whatever around the globe. For instance, do you consider that an official airplane could have the departure in Brazil with a structural failure inside to be combined with other geopolitical area that has this structural failure, but give up to have the continuity of this and has this ball field offering you as an asset for the international police or the international system of control, have this question inside the security for Brazil USA, considering the Article 174 of the Brazilian Constitution that says that you can't lie about your public plan as government and state, despite you are not reliable by the micro behavior of your environment. Do you consider that this could happen? Second question, do you consider that could exist the possibility or the possible risk as seizure about drug seizures in Brazil, considering the increasement of the drug seizures, in Brazil, and the redistribution associated with drug user and black market of drugs by the public corruption, because it looks like that the seizures about drugs had increased, but the users and things like this kind of had, very close to this behavior. And if you consider this a covariance, you know, implies as association. Do you consider or can name any group that acts by misusage of prerogative, named militia or paramilitar, trafficking of drugs, especially in Rio de Janeiro, that got placed in the local parliament, Rio de Janeiro or whatever, all around? Do you consider that this could exist? Third question, do you consider that could have the possibility or possible risk as having, for instance, your, in general, financial operation at the digital space named fintech, and sometimes you have analogical purchase or something like this using your credit card, and you have a customer relationship that an ombudsman service with the provider as bank and the operator of your credit card. But you replace all this, considering this as the line of fintech regular, and such an environment here by one specific interval, replacing or not authorizing the regular flow as fintech, and you consider that can take advantage of this by the cloning customer relation as operator of the credit card plus the bank, you know, to take advantage in a illicit way. Do you consider that this could be a possibility, especially if this bank is a public bank that has now the possibility to put you in the same way the receiver of the drug using a cargo, a official cargo ship in Brazil, from Brazil to Europe did. Question number one, do you consider that could exist the possibility of a public department and coalitions linked with have a misuse of prerogatives to set zones and intervals for illicit advantage, I mean supporting the criminal activity? Question number two, do you consider that this could be presented at the drug as redistribution after have the seizures? For instance, from other areas, Europe or something like this, have an entrance in Brazil, and you have the seizures. But this seizure is to have the internal redistribution according with criminal interests linked with the public corruption scam. Can be the drug, can be the machine guns, can be the financial asset, whatever. Third question, do you consider that the regular flow as fintech, considering the COVID-19 and forced isolation that we had, could have one area as a lapse or a lead time to have the legal procedure and collect the data and replace channels or the customer relationship management by interest that you have maybe on South America, considering this kind of activity? Because this is a regressive analysis, it's a systematical behavior presented in a reverse way, because you can have the Conjunctural Brazil for criminal purpose, the public corruption inside the Conjunctural Brazil with coalitions linked with acting according with criminal purpose and interest, and very specific types of behavior considering specialized level of skill training activity at the fintech, which implies the financial and the technology, and those two fields are financial, which is the white collar crime law Brazil, and communication. In both cases, linked with the Article 174, which is about the planning of security in Brazil, that must have a Ministry of Justice, chair number one at the Supreme Court, a federal prosecutor number one, which according with the white collar crime law in Brazil, had no action. It means that it's a value that can be considered as the system of security, international security for Brazil USA. And all this as top down, you can consider the prosecutors in Brazil something, okay. In the same way, all institutions at the security 144 by reciprocity and equity inside the security forum, we put them out and have the international action. You have no legitimacy to act. Can you get Brazil? So, is this for real, Brazil? We have this not accomplishment with the white collar crime law at the financial system and the communication, considering the technology, integration of both, give me specialized skills at fintech to serve criminal purpose that happens inside or from public departments in Brazil that can do seizures and abusive procedure to have the redistribution of these illegal results as consequence of illicit procedure as part of the conjunctural criminality in Brazil that is integrated with other. Now we are having a progression as a systematical question. To you, Brazil as conjunctural, considering the military force 142 that must have the dignity, to present if it has any other conjunctural architecture for criminality linked with Brazil. We finish here. This is the idea of the database Sigma that you violated and committed industrial crime against the NATO interests, maybe the big tech America, maybe the Security Forum Brazil USA, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the OECD, and others, real players at the scenery and concerned with action, all by law. We will cut here. Have a nice weekend. We will move maybe in the next month. These activities closer, 1,000 times closer. We will have maybe something new, but not now. This is something that maybe we will have something new. Have a nice weekend.